appropriately, end quote, recorded the sideline of their next opponent while producing a behind-the-scenes piece on an advanced scout.
I have no involvement in this and no knowledge of it, and I really don't have any idea what exactly is going on. I can tell you that, we've never, as a coaching staff, and I personally have never viewed any video footage at all of anything that those production people have done, other than what's shown on public television or something like that. We don't have anything to do with what they do, so I really don't have much knowledge of the situation at all.
Belichick also said that he learned of the Bengals' complaint about this yesterday afternoon. That was, again, on a conference call this morning. Tom Pelissero, Ian Rapoport, Judy Battista are at a league meeting, all kinds of business, outside Dallas. Judy, what's the story from the league perspective there on this?
Well, what I can tell you from this morning, Andrew, is they are looking at the security report literally right now upstairs in this hotel where they're meeting. They have reviewed the tape. They're going to look at the security report. This is in the hands of, right now, the football operations department. They expect to move pretty quickly. They would like to get this wrapped up. They've got the tape. They've looked at it. They want to get this wrapped up in terms of if there's going to be any discipline. And the vibe I get, guys, is there seems to be like they are leaning toward believing the Patriots version of events. What one person said to me was, I just want to know if what is on that tape is anything that they could not get from watching on TV or from the coach's tape.
Yeah, and Judy, from a logistics standpoint, there really are not many teams actually giving signals anymore either. And maybe substitution patterns, you could get the body language of a head coach, but this is not like years ago where you're signaling things in. Calls come in through the headset now, but I do get the same sense that the league is inclined to believe the Patriots' explanation. But obviously, Tom, that doesn't necessarily mean the Patriots are off the hook. They did admit that they did not alert the Bengals. They didn't alert the NFL. Clearly, there was at the least a miscommunication here, which would lead me to believe, based on the people I've spoken with, that if they got penalized, it would be something along the lines of a fine.
And Ian, I have spoken to somebody who viewed a portion of that tape, and they say that there is footage of the Bengals coaches signaling things in and then the camera panning out to the field. Whatever the intentions were, the Bengals are furious about it. The owners are all here. You can expect Mike Brown will be here, as well as members of the Kraft family. It is certainly going to be a discussion point and something they're going to want to resolve sooner than later.
All right, that's one thing that's being discussed in the hallways there outside Dallas. Another thing, Judy, officiating, and I guess we could look at pass interference. There have been a lot more pass interference calls changed the last couple of weeks. We've crunched the numbers. In weeks 1 through 10, 10 of 65 PI calls. These are either team challenges or official reviews were overturned. So a 15% reversal. The last 4 weeks, that reversal rate, Judy, is up to 45%. Seems like something's different.
Not intentionally, if you listen to league executives. They were fine with early in the season the standard being it had to be catastrophic. It had to be a New Orleans-like offense to overturn it. Then it has changed in the last few weeks. That has been alarming to some people in the league. They do not want the standard changing, particularly at this time of the year. I've been told that once the offseason begins, there will be a top-down review of officiating that will include the question of who is in charge of reviews at the command center.
Yeah, and it does sound like they're looking at everything, and really the main issue appears to be the consistency in coaches and teams just wanting to know what actually is going to be called, what can they expect, because of all the frustration we've gotten, the what actually are we going to see on game day has been probably the loudest.
This entire rule change pertinent to pass interference came about in an unusual way, where coaches came up with something that was not on the competition committee agenda, was not initially a voting item. They passed it after the coaches made a very strong pitch for it and then wrote the rules. Well, the fact that you've seen some of the same coaches who were in favor of that change complaining about it publicly, you would think are going to be doing the same thing if we get to March. They're going to want to have a clear plan from a league level as well as from a team level. The coaches are going to want to hear, how is this going to get better?
Andrew, right before we toss it back to you, two things on the collective bargaining agreement. They negotiated last week. They will leave the negotiating committee when they leave this meeting here on Wednesday. They're going straight to Washington to continue negotiations. There's still some optimism that perhaps this could get done. At least they could get some of the terms done by the end of the season. And at this meeting, they will get, the team presidents and general managers are going to get the broad outlines of where the salary cap will be for next year.
All right, so salary cap number is on the way, and for those who don't know, there is 1 year after this season remaining on the current.
See if we can win in overtime.
Wentz fires, complete, touchdown, Eagles win, Zach Ertz. They have saved the season.
A lot to unpack from that game last night. Bottom line is, as Merrill Reese just said, the Eagles are still very much in this thing. Somehow. Welcome to NFL Now on NFL Network. From our newsroom in Los Angeles, I'm Andrew Siciliano. Coming up, Bill Belichick again denies he had anything to do with the camera Sunday in Cincinnati. We'll tell you what the coach said this morning. Charlie Casserly has the keys to TNF, and we have a Lamar Jackson injury update for you as well. Plus, Michael Fabiano, pressure is on, will tell you how to win your fantasy playoffs. We begin, however, with the game from last night. Pouring rain. I mean, just a monsoon in Philly for Eli Manning back as the starting quarterback with family there for the first time since week number 2. You know what the Eagles had to do? They had to keep pace with the Cowboys. They had to win another game to stay alive in that awful division, and they couldn't stay with Darius Slayton, who had 5 for 154 and 2 touchdowns in the first half. This one 55, the first one 35, and the Giants lead behind Eli 17-3 at the half. You keep waiting. And the fans kept waiting in the rain for the Eagles to wake up, but they had so many injuries. It's been a storyline all year. Alshon Jeffrey, more on him in a bit, had to be carted off. And then Lane Johnson went down. He gets his leg rolled up. Officially, it is an ankle injury, and he goes to the locker room with a cart as well. Finally, eventually, it gets to 17-10. Final couple of minutes. Dallas Goedert get open for 28 yards. Whenever the Eagles needed the Giants to blow a coverage, this was a theme, they would. This, though, pretty decent coverage. Zach Ertz, 2-yard touchdown. Eagles come all the way back. They send this game to overtime because that's what this game needed. This game needed overtime. So the Eagles win the toss. Eli would never get a shot. Speaking of busted coverages, Carson Wentz, Zach Ertz, 2-yard score. Eagles survive. 23-17.
It's huge for us. Obviously we realized there was a sloppy game for a while, but the way guys just hung tough and stayed together, more importantly. And obviously we dealt with some injuries and some other guys stepping up, making plays, and that was huge.
Well, I haven't played in 3 months, so, and you don't know if I'm going to play again. So I think it's pretty obvious why it was important.
What are you going to decide, Eli, about next year? Is that after the season?
Probably next year.
All right, more on Eli in a bit. Here, though, is what matters in the NFC East. We have 2 6-7 teams that will meet again week 16. The Cowboys won the first round. I thought Chris Long, the former Patriot, the former Ram, had a great tweet, the former Eagle as well, last night, said it's like Carson Wentz is out there in a pouring rain, like it's the Notebook, throwing to guys who, if you look at their headshots on NFL.com, they're just silhouettes. Like, who are these guys? It's a veritable who's he. Kimberly Jones and Mike Garafolo that Carson Wentz was thrown to yesterday, but with all those injuries, when they needed it most, he made it work.
There's no question, Andrew, and you come out of that feeling really good because as a team, they badly needed a game like that, particularly after the game against the Dolphins. And talking to Zach Ertz post-game, he says, I'm lining up as a wide receiver, which I know you watch the game and you see him line up out wide, but he was saying basically he was where the X receiver or the Z receiver needed to be. And they're in the huddle, and Wentz said, we're flipping the X and the Z in the huddle with guys that really haven't had the bulk of the reps throughout training camp and the season and weren't even maybe on the roster to start the season. So you feel really good about that. Now, you look and you go forward and you say, we're not going to have Alshon Jeffrey because Doug Peterson spoke at his press conference today. He said Lane Johnson with that high ankle sprain is week to week, which in coach speak means multiple weeks. And he said Jeffrey is more significant than that. They're waiting for one more test to come back. So that's going to be it likely for Alshon Jeffrey for the rest of the season for the Eagles, and you realize that now you're going to go face teams that will probably cover Zach Ertz. I mean, in a game like that, you think we're going to put 2 guys on Zach Ertz. The Giants said, well, let's try none. And clearly that was not the call from the coaches. That was the miscommunication on the field. But you would think that they would have shown more attention there. So the Eagles still have a lot of work in front of them. They're hoping to get Nelson Aguilar back. They thought they had a shot to get him for this game. But right now you're feeling good, but you're looking forward and saying, all right, we still need to get even a little bit better offensively to get this thing going.
The Eagles go to Washington this week to play the Redskins as they try to get their 7th win. Kimberly Jones, from the Giants' perspective after the game, Pat Shurmur said he does expect to stay on for the final 3 games. He kind of avoided the quarterback question, but today he did say that if and when Daniel Jones is healthy, Daniel Jones is the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, listen, when it comes to the New York Giants, last night had 2 different parts to the script. They took a lead, a 14-point lead into halftime. That's significant. Usually they're down by halftime and then lose by a bigger margin in the second half. This time they just lost the entire margin plus some in overtime and lost the game that way. That was different. And then there's Eli Manning, who got at least one more opportunity to sweat on game day as his wife and children and his family, including Peyton, looked on at Lincoln Financial Field. That was really the only difference, and you could tell me those are significant differences. And I will say this, the moment Eli Manning walks out the door of the Giants for the last time, that is the last player there who has any idea on what it's like to actually win in this league. That's the last one, and that will truly be an end of an era in many respects. This is a Giants team that doesn't make a lot of adjustments at halftime. Earlier this season, I asked Pat Shurmur about that. He said he was comfortable with halftime adjustments. I don't have enough time to list those for you. You're going to have to trust me on that. I promise I'm right. But this is a team that lost its way a long time ago. And I was listening to WFAN, where I do radio shows, on my way here to the Jets today. Carl Banks, with whom I do radio shows on The Fan, the great Giant, and a friend of Pat Shurmur since Michigan State, called this Giants situation catastrophic and said it's hard to watch a team that can't adjust. Think about how damning that is from Carl Banks, who's the analyst on Giants radio.
Pat Shurmur was asked today basically what happened, why was there a blown coverage on Zach Ertz in the end zone in overtime. He said because there was a blown coverage. Basically, he had no answer for it other than it happened, and he wishes it didn't happen. There are 3 games left. I think everyone likes here Pat Shurmur. Everyone, I think, happy to see Eli Manning come back and play reasonably well. But it was kind of inevitable. You knew the Eagles were going to rally and do it. Just was there enough time? We have more on the Jets, by the way, a little bit later, because that one's interesting as well as they get ready for Thursday Night Football. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Mike. Let's turn the page now to the Patriots. Bill Belichick, for a second time, has denied that he nor his football staff had anything to do